Hi, and welcome to the Shadow Priest point of view. This is Chalice, member of Remorseless, and this is the Cho'gall encounter. Our raid setup is 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 6 DPS. This encounter uses a mechanic revolved around a corruption bar that everyone has, and it will slowly fill up as the fight goes on, depending on how bad you are at avoiding damage. As the corruption level of a player rises, they will gain new debuffs. At 25% corruption, a player is inflicted with corruption accelerated. This will increase your corruption every second. This needs to be dispelled as soon as possible. At 50%, a player will get corruption sickness. This will make you vomit, dealing shadow damage to everyone in a 5-yard cone in front of you. You should turn away from the raid to avoid damaging them. At 75%, a player will get corruption malformation. This will grow a malformation out of your back that will cast shadow bolts at raid members. If corruption ever gets full, and you have to be really bad for this to happen, then you will get a debuff giving you 100% more damage done and making all spells instant casts. However, it also reduces all healing taken by 100%. There's a lot of AoE damage, so you won't have the buff for long before you die. Cho'gall will often cast Conversion, which mind controls random people, 2 on 10 man and 5 on 25. They will channel the boss, giving him a stacking buff that increases damage by 10% for each mind controlled person every 3 seconds they channel him. You need to interrupt those people to break the channel and do it before the boss gets too much damage increase. Anything that interrupts the cast will break the mind control. Knockbacks, stuns, interrupts, silences, everything works. Cho'gall will alternate casting between Shadows orders and Flames orders. Shadows orders summons a shadowy elemental next to him, which he then absorbs. This grants him Unleash Shadows, which does AoE damage to the raid every so often. Flames orders summons a fiery elemental for Cho'gall to absorb. This grants him Flaming Destruction, which is thrown on a random location on the ground and leaves a fire patch. This will hurt anyone it lands on or stands in the fire. It also makes melee attacks do additional fire damage to the tank. Healers should know what each call means in order to focus on raid heals or tank heals. Cho'gall will also blast the tank with Fury of Cho'gall, doing a lot of physical and shadow damage and leaving 2 debuffs on the tank. The first is Cho's Blast. This will increase physical damage taken by 20%. The second is Gall's Blast. Increases the shadow damage taken by 20%. These stack, so you'll need to tank swap. Cho'gall will summon a Corrupting Inherent that will cast Corrupting Crash and Depravity. Corrupting Crash is a void zone on the floor, and a shadow missile will land in it shortly after. This does a lot of damage and will give you a lot of corruption for not moving. Depravity will inflict a high amount of shadow damage to anyone within 20 yards and causes extra corruption. This can and should be interrupted. The Corrupting Adherent will also use Sprayed Corruption, which inflicts a lot of damage on the tank and increases the tank's corruption level. You need to have a designated spot to kill the Corrupting Adherents on. We chose the entrance steps in this pattern. When a Corrupting Adherent dies, it leaves a void zone on the floor, and when Cho'gall casts Fester Blood, little adds are spawned out of each void zone. If any Corrupting Adherent is still alive, Fester Blood will give them a buff, causing Corruption Adherent to do AoE shadow damage every 2 seconds, which increases everyone's corruption. Kill the ad before it gets this buff. Rinse and repeat until 25%. You shouldn't get more than 3 or 4 Corrupting Adherents.
Sound
Kill Cho'gall before everyone becomes corrupted. Cho'gall will use darkened creation that spawns tentacles in a circle around him. Interrupt, stun, and kill these before they have a chance to cast Deliberating Beam on raid members. This is a channel that reduces damage and healing done by 75% and inflicts shadow damage every second. Interrupt and kill those ASAP and nuke the boss before he kills you all. Once again, thank you for watching the Shadow Priest point of view. To the light.